Hello everybody, welcome back to another reading. Today we're going to take a look at the case of the Jack family who disappeared in the night of August 2nd, 1989, supposedly chasing employment at a logging camp near Klukel's Lake area. Now the Jack family consisted of 4 people: Ronald, age 26, or also known as Ronnie, Doreen, also age 26, and their 2 sons, Russel, age 9, and Ryan, age 4. They weren't doing very well financially, and they were looking for job opportunities. One night on August 1st, Ronnie went to a pub nearby, the First Leader pub, and he met a man there who was talking about job opportunities at a logging site nearby. The only problem was if Ronnie wanted to accept the job, he would have to take his entire family and leave that night, otherwise the time would be up and they wouldn't be able to get down there. And they said that they would also have a job for Doreen. She could work in the kitchen while Ronnie worked on logging, and they were promised that there would be childcare facilities at the camp itself. So that all sounded very good to be true. And it also kind of shows how desperate for work they were, because normally if you had options and you had this guy coming in that you never met before saying, hey, if you don't pack up your stuff tonight, you're not going to get this great job opportunity, and you've got everything that you could possibly want as a young family, you'd probably be a little bit more cautious. Particularly because they're in the Prince George area, which is right at the start of Highway 16, which is also the Highway of Tears where people tend to disappear. However, usually it's only women that are by themselves that disappear, so maybe they were thinking, well, what can you do to an entire family? And that's why they thought maybe it can't possibly be that bad. I'm pretty sure it's fine. And then they ended up disappearing regardless. Now, Ronnie was very close to his mother, so he would always call her at least once a day, I believe that I heard. Also, the eldest child was going to go to school about 10 to 15 days after August 1st, so they should have come back at some point. But after August 2nd, nobody heard anything from them again. There have been a few people who called in some clues, or potentially clues. Somebody called in about 10 years later that the bodies were supposedly at the southern area of a place called Geordie's Ranch, but that was not found to be true. People thought over the years that there was a couple of different people who may have done it. Also, those men that they suspected might be the ones responsible tended to go for single women. Once again, most people who disappear around the Highway of Tears tend to be lonely women who are walking down the road, at least as far as I'm aware. Not really a whole family. So whoever this was, if they did indeed kidnap the family for murdering intentions, then this is a very brazen act to take an entire family on at once. So that's already very strange. Either way, they did disappear around the Highway of Tears, so it is suspected that it is a murder case, though they've yet to be found. So today we want to go and take a look if we can see anything through the tarot. I'm an intuitive reader, that means I'll tell you what the cards say to me. Either way, we're getting started with the Renaissance deck, which is a metallic style deck. I haven't got the booklet for this. It's been ages, I think, since this thing was printed. Then we're moving on to the Deviant Moon Tarot deck, which is this one, with the moon-themed cards, which always have a bit of a creepy vibe. But I like to pull this deck out whenever I'm trying to figure out what's going on, maybe with or within the mind of the person who killed somebody, because that is a bit of a twisted world, and that's why I like to take a deck that has some twisted imagery to perhaps reflect better what's going on there. In any case, I'm just going to start shuffling the cards, and once we have a good amount of cards on the table, we're going to take a look and see what we can see. Okay, we've got a couple of rows, and we'll go take a look at what it is that we've got here. We are starting off with the Knight of Pentacles in reverse, and oops, sorry, I dropped them again. And Judgment in reverse, and then we have the Page of Pentagrams next to that. So we have here the Knight and the Page, and both of them, they seem to be pointing towards this could be a financial opportunity. The Knight is normally very careful, and I feel like this may have represented Ronnie in the sense that he would be the one trying to take care of the family the most, being the responsible dad, and perhaps overlooking a better judgment, because the judgment is right next to the Knight, and it's also reversed. Over better judgment, they decided to take on this opportunity, and this here Page of Pentacle, I feel, is Doreen, and they were both like, okay, well, maybe she thought less of it, not as in she didn't think it was a good idea, but more like she didn't think too much through how this could be a bad idea, and maybe that also convinced him ultimately that they were making the right decision. Like, based on their situation, their financial situation, they decided to overlook the potential risks. Like I said earlier, who has ever heard of a whole family being taken out by a serial killer? Usually that doesn't happen. And so they decided to take this risk, and assuming that they were going to get paid because of all this pentacle energy that is currently coming up. So that was their initial assumption. And we can see that obviously by the way that they packed up for at least a couple of weeks and then left town. And then we see the Hierophant in reverse next to the Seven of Pentacles. This is still the energy of hoping that their investment is going to pay off. And the Five of Swords. So this is where it starts to go down south, because first of all we have the reversed Hierophant. Now the Hierophant is probably the guy who offered them the job. Hierophant is often somebody who has some type of position of power, somebody who is taking a higher position than the people around them, part of like an organization perhaps, the one who's telling them that this is how they're going to do things from now on, and they kind of rule the money. Also, you can see the couple of people down there that seems to be holding up the throne. So this is somebody who relies on other people to work for him, and he has that position of power. So this is probably the person who offered them the job, the guy who picked them up at the pub, who promised them all sorts of financial rewards, once again, because the Seven of Pentacles is more like a harvest time, really seeing the harvest come in. So it's the promise of wealth is what the Seven of Pentacles is showing. But then we see the Five of Swords, and it's in reverse. So this shows me that there is some type of internal struggle with somebody. It could be multiple people. Usually the Five of Swords is like multiple people having an argument. In this case, it could be one of the two parents having second thoughts, or this could be the Hierophant himself having some second thoughts. We're not really sure who it is yet. We're going to take a look at the next line. So in summary, we see people feeling that they could be getting some financial rewards finally, because they were looking for opportunities, and so they set their better judgment aside in order to chase this person. And so they set their better judgment aside in order to chase this Hierophant and his promise of wealth with the Seven of Pentacles. But then there was some internal struggles. Then we see some more sword energy in the sense of the Seven of Swords, that's deceit. We see here the Page of Wands, that's like hasty actions, and the Eight of Wands. So together I would say this is where the betrayal came out. And it could be that maybe the Hierophant was initially not even planning on doing whatever it is that they did, because the Page of Wands shows a very fiery card if you look at the fire burning at the bottom, and the person themselves are just kind of flying up, like they're flying off the handle. A sudden burst of anger, a sudden burst of activity. Maybe it's somebody who just decided that they were going to take an action without really thinking it through. I think they did have some time to think about it beforehand, like it was premeditated, because we see the Seven of Swords, which is often a manipulation and deceit card, and that is like a stabbing in the back type thing by this Page of Wands, who acted very rationally. And we see next to that the Eight of Wands, which is carrying a burden. It could also be, well, I feel like it's carrying a burden. Normally Eight of Wands is more of a like a lot of activity type of thing, but it feels to me, it comes across as carrying a burden. I'm going to put the other two down for a second so I can hold this one separately. When I saw this Eight of Wands, I initially thought like this is something weighing them down, but normally, like I said, Eight of Wands is a lot of activity, stuff happening, and keeping my initial reaction, I would say that this is more them, the Page of Wands over here, dealing with their consequences. So what it seems like is the Page of Wands had a rash moment. They did something deceitful, and then they had to quickly cover it up. And the Eight of Wands, like, it's part of burden, but also part of, okay, I can fix this, I can do this, I have lots of stuff. They're at a logging camp, so at least that's where they said they were going to take him. So perhaps they had certain ways that they could make people disappear, and nobody would ever be the wiser. So this seems like, even though he's burdened with deceiving the whole family, which is 4 people instead of the one which normally serial killers would go for, but at the same time finding that he can deal with it, strangely enough, followed by the Six of Pentacles. So Six of Pentacles is normally like a charity card, like being given something or being charitable to some other people, perhaps. Followed by the Hermit, so that's a retreat. Okay, so first of all, we see him covering up his rash actions and deceit right here, but we do see here the Six of Pentacles and the Hermit. Now this seems to me like, for whatever reason or however that might have taken place, after they carried out their actions and probably after the family was sadly dispatched. We don't really see too much of that, but maybe we'll get some more of that with the next deck. Anyway, after all that happened, they kind of withdrew, but they did get some type of gain out of it. Like, they got what they wanted, and then they decided to withdraw from society, lay low basically, because people might be watching for them. This bird over here is also on the lookout, and he's just skulking around over there with his lantern, trying to find his way without being caught. So he managed to get something out of it while laying low, as we see with the Hermits. Then the Seven of Wands, which is normally like people coming for them, followed by the Knight of Cups. Now this seems to me like he's been laying low, but there are people who are coming for his position. So it's like certain people around them, maybe people who they know, people who knew the Jack family, perhaps challenging him, looking at him, or maybe he's even just feeling like that's what they're doing, because the Knight of Cups here is very involved with his own emotions. So I feel like this is him, the person whoever perpetrated the action here, feeling like people are coming for them and is really affecting them emotionally. He's trying to keep everybody else at bay, which is what the Seven of Wands is showing. So maybe people did suspect him at some points, but they did actually manage to avoid being caught. Well, obviously they managed to avoid being caught because we don't know who did it, so at least the public is not aware of him having done the things that he did. And I'm saying he because initially it was a he that picked him up from the pub. The family could either be a she, but that would be very unlikely. In any case, I'm getting a very masculine energy in this reading so far, as in from the person who perpetrated whatever deed they did that made it so that the Jack family did not return. So we saw initially the hope of the Jack family, the trust that they put in this Hierophant character for better days, and then having some doubts about it. Maybe they just had an argument about it, and then that led to quickly being dispatched by this person who is being represented over here by the Page of Wands, who deceived them and then quickly covered it up while still claiming some type of reward from it and laying low while feeling like people are watching them. Yeah, this combination in particular strikes me as somebody who is fairly paranoid even now that people will find out. So I feel like this person is still around. Let's see if we can get the whole situation. Let's try for the kids. Let's see if we can get anything about Russel and Ryan, because maybe this person didn't take out the kids after all. Maybe they decided to let them go somehow. Let's see what we can get for Russel and Ryan. First card, King of Cups in reverse. So King of Cups, I believe, is still our perpetrator coming up In reverse, this is emotional manipulation. I feel like he may have tried to spare them at first by telling them a bunch of lies. I get the impression that they were kept separately, at least for some time, and then he would come in and say, oh, they're just, your parents are resting, it's fine, just sit here for a while, I got some toys here, got some books you can read, just hang in there, it'll be okay. And I imagine that particularly the eldest, probably because 9 years old, you would know a thing or two about the world already, so maybe that one would start to question it, but he was really manipulating them to keep them off the trail of what's really happening. And that was really at cost of his own resources, I believe. Nine of Pentacles normally like independently resourceful, and it's in reverse, so that turned out to be more of a drain that perhaps they could handle. Perhaps also just, not necessarily just financially, but also emotionally and timing-wise. I don't know what type of business they were in. Maybe they just couldn't deal with taking care of 2 small children right there. But it's some type of drain on them in any case. On the King of Cups. Then Wheel of Fortune in reverse. This came across to me as them trying their fortune, testing their fortune, in other words, to try and keep these kids entertained and not having to do bad things to them, aside from obviously killing their parents, but more like trying to keep them as his own and failing. And then the Wheel of Fortune is like the mind considering other options. That's what I'm trying to say here, because he was trying to do the right thing in a twisted way, but apparently he could not do it. Ultimately just couldn't bear it, because it was a lot of work. You can see here with this, I'm gonna grab it a second time, you can see in the background there's like these factories pumping away back there, and they're like on a wheel or something, so they may have been not quite capable of taking care of them. They probably already had a lot of stuff under mind and things to do. It just was too much perhaps to do that. Yeah, here we see another 7 of Pentacles, but this one's in reverse, and it looks like they were bleeding him dry, or at least he couldn't handle it. This is just another repeat of the other cards here. Although looking at the wheel, I got the impression that they didn't need to conclude that it was too much work for them, and so they kind of spun the wheel in their own way and perhaps just let them go or dumped them somewhere in hopes that they would figure out something for themselves, maybe. Okay, we also have here the Page of Cups. That's a sudden emotional surprise. Was not expecting that. Like perhaps they were trying to find some way to get rid of Ryan and Russel in some way, and they were surprised by somebody perhaps coming up, offering them a way out. We have here the High Priestess. Okay, and followed by the 2 of Cups. Okay, so this High Priestess in reverse, I kind of feel like they may have been aware. This looks like a different person, by the way. The High Priestess might be another person coming in. Somebody, I feel like, because of, yeah, what's currently forming in my mind is he found it to be a lot of work, like I said, wanted to do something else, and then was surprised by this High Priestess coming in, because it feels like this person, High Priestess over here, had an idea of what was going on. Like, even though he was trying to keep everything hidden back here with the Hermit card and this here 7 of Wands and the Knight of Cups, this High Priestess at least had some idea that the kids were not his own, and they decided to take them away, or at least took him up on the offer to take them away and give them some other chance, or at least work together with them, because 2 of Cups is also like 2 people coming together with their emotions and perhaps like balancing each other out. And it seems like, at least what I'm seeing here, is that this High Priestess came in and saw through the entire situation and said, I can work with this, I can do something with this, I can help you out. So what would be the result of that then? The result is the Six of Swords. The Six of Swords being a card that says being guided or led by somebody else, so they took them away. Now where to, I don't know. I'm gonna put you over here. So whoever this High Priestess was, they came to the person who probably most likely dispatched the parents but didn't want to necessarily kill the children as well, and said, hey, I have a solution for you. I got a place where they can go. And then we find a King of Pentacles. So this is literally somebody coming in and offering them, or at least having stuff to offer. Like this might be somebody who was willing to pay for them. Like this person comes across to me, at least this card does come across to me, as somebody who knows how to transport kids to people who are looking for children in their life. That's kind of what I'm seeing over here. It's almost like they were taken away, and not necessarily to be with this king, but at least this king had resources that they could use to transport these kids to perhaps somebody else. Let's see if we can get anything else about that. Okay, so then we get a Queen of Swords here. We get a Page of Cups in reverse. And another one that's currently turned around. Wheel of Fortune again. Also in reverse, we get two reversed Wheels of Fortune. So it looks like they ended up with somebody who has a lot of Queen of Swords energy, followed by somebody who is more of a Page of Cups. And this here doesn't spell much good, the reversed Wheel of Fortune. So this comes across to me like they were put in a family, or at least a couple of people adopted them, quote unquote. If you were to believe this lineup over here, obviously, that kept them, and it was not necessarily a good place for them to be. First of all, Queen of Swords is very cold, very calculated. They probably told them all sorts of lies to keep them sedated, not physically sedated, but more like from trying to reach out. And paired with this queen is a Page of Cups. So that is somebody who is fairly, I want to say, young at heart, not very mature, and they are also very emotionally manipulative. And that just turned into their lot with this reversed Wheel of Fortune. So that looks like the adoptive family at the very least had no interest in contacting the previous family. They just wanted to keep them for whatever purposes they may have had. And it looks like they were not very good purposes, because I'm also drawn to look at this Wheel of Fortune card. If you look at the two people on the outside of the wheel, they're both wearing a blindfold. So it's like, okay, we're just going to keep you in the dark, and we're going to do whatever it is that we feel is right because you're on our Wheel of Fortune now. That's what this card seems to be saying. So what about Ronnie and Doreen? Because so far this story is mostly about the children after the point where this argument happened or this rash action started. But we haven't seen too much about Ronnie and Doreen. Let's see if we can get a few cards for them. Yeah, again, we get the Eight of Wands. And we also had the Eight of Wands earlier when we already had the part back here about what happened to them. There we are, Eight of Wands. That one was upright, but this one's in reverse. So whatever action he was taking here, the person who did this, possibly also the same person from the pub, that was positive for them and negative for Ronnie and Doreen. So this is definitely a confirmation that at this point they were dealt with by this person who took them in. So that I take as confirmation that at the very least Ronnie and Doreen did not make it out of whatever terrain they ended up bringing them to. What about the kids today? Can we see anything about them? Any cards about that? We get the Page of Wands. So as a response to whether Russel and Ryan are still out there, we get the Page of Wands upright. Like I said earlier, Page of Wands, we had them already over there. With the rash action, we see more rash actions, and I'm getting the impression that, as you can see, most of these characters have like a double face, and they're kind of like moving through life in an unusual manner. And I feel like this means that whatever it is that they ended up doing, they didn't quite land on their feet in a positive manner. Like they're currently two-faced, they're having trouble moving through life, they're probably taking rash actions themselves as well. Like they're probably off the rails. I want to get some clarification of that. This Page of Wands, what should they be thinking of? They're also on thin ice, because I see that the Page of Wands over there on the card is walking on stilts on a frozen pond or lake, mostly through the night. So they're in slippery slope territory. And we see here the Eight of Swords. Is that the 8? Yes, it is. Which would suggest that they're trapped mentally, and combined with what I was just saying about the Page of Wands, it seems like they might be doing pretty badly mentally, mental issues, perhaps some addiction issues, coping mechanisms. It seems to me like if they're still out there, then they're probably not doing too well, because they're trapped physically and mentally in the sense of down a very negative spiral that they're not likely to break out of anytime soon. And I don't think that they have any idea that they are Russel and Ryan Jack, as a matter of fact. So if they're out there, they're probably using different names. They probably have virtually no memory of the past, or have been talked out of remembering so much things that they don't even really know what their past is like. So they're lost and confused. That's what I'm seeing for the Jack family. Hope you found that interesting. Be sure to leave a like or a comment, that really helps. In any case, thanks for watching. Hope to see you in another video, and bye bye for now.